What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette Sports Now YouTube channel and podcast network. Noah Hiles joining me today on Tuesday is Ray Fittipaldo. First time getting to do a show with Ray here in my new role. Ray, I'm sure you missed Jason, but I'm excited to get started with you here, man.
Yeah, hey, listen, we'll work out the kinks. We'll get a little chemistry going, and we'll be good before you know it.
All right. And you know what? It's also good is our show's presenting sponsor, which is FanDuel. Big shout out to them for being the presenting sponsor. The show is also brought to you by Pella. There's no better place to get windows and doors installed in your home than Pella, who can come and save you on energy costs year-round. Schedule a free in-home consultation with your local Pella windows and doors to find the right product for your home and budget. Give us a call at 866-593-1560 to discuss your project further. That's 866-593-1560 to get started planning on your new windows and doors installation with Pella Windows and Doors of Pittsburgh. So, Ray, a lot to talk about. This is probably, when you look at the schedule at the beginning of the year, this is one of the ones that you have circled. As a sports writer, as someone who just watches football, even outside the city of Pittsburgh, this is probably one of the premier showdowns of the NFL calendar. It's Steelers, it's Packers, it's Sunday Night Football, it's Aaron Rodgers against the team where he built a Hall of Fame resume. So, of course, we're going to talk about that. Going to talk about some tight ends as well. But like I said, we got to start with Steelers Packers. We got to start with Aaron Rodgers. This is the first time Aaron Rodgers is going to get a chance to play against his former team. The Jets didn't play the Packers in either of the two seasons when Aaron was in New York. He, of course, only played 1 year there anyway because he was injured. So this is a really interesting narrative, really. I mean, like, he got to play the Jets, and I think we'll talk about that here to start because you're there every day. You're at all of these media availabilities. This is coming out Tuesday. He talks on Tuesdays, correct? Or does he Wednesday?
He talks on Wednesdays. Yeah.
Okay. So he's going to talk later this week. If memory serves correctly, he didn't have a ton to say about the Jets prior to the matchup. He had some things to say after the win. Right. Do you think that's the case this time around, Ray? Or do you think there's maybe a little bit more to say, considering how his time in Green Bay came to an end?
Yeah, I think the Jets situation was much different. That ended acrimoniously. I think the story now has been well told about the parting there with Aaron Glenn and their GM. And, Aaron said all the right things before that matchup, but once they won that matchup, he kind of let loose a little bit. And, we kind of saw what his true feelings were. I think with Green Bay, 18 seasons, lots of really good memories. I'm sure he would have liked to maybe finish his career there if he could have written his own script. But, you go back to that's where he won his Super Bowl way back in 2011 when they beat the Steelers. He won 4 MVPs there, including one in 2021. So, yeah, I think Aaron is going to be much more willing, much more open to talk about that. And, I think he's got a lot of good memories from his time in Green Bay. And like Noah, you mentioned, like, you circle this on your calendar. It's really good now because the Packers are playing well.
Yep.
The Steelers are playing well despite the Thursday night meltdown. And how about Aaron Rodgers? I mean, Aaron Rodgers looks like he's, 10 years younger at 32, the way he's moving around, creating time in the pocket. So I've just been really impressed with his game through the first 6 weeks of the season. And like the one thing we didn't know about, and maybe this was because, you wonder about the post-Achilles, and they always say it does take a year to get over that. No, he's moving around as well as I've seen him move around like in 5 years. So if they can continue to get this version of Aaron Rodgers, I think the Steelers' offense is just going to keep on improving.
Yeah, and I think, Aaron Rodgers' element of this aside, this is an intriguing matchup because this is the Steelers' biggest test. Now, when they played the Patriots are looking like a really good team, but when they played that game, no one thought the Patriots were going to be the team that they are right now. And I mean, the Jets game had some narrative to it, but again, this is a big test for multiple reasons. If you lose this one, that's 2 in a row. It's your first primetime home game of the season. It's your first Sunday night game. It's Aaron Rodgers' first Sunday night game. And so there's that element of it. But I think the other aspect of it where, like you said, the familiarity with Green Bay, when he was playing the Jets, he's going up against a guy who didn't coach him in New York. Yeah. He's going up against, a quarterback on the other sideline who didn't take his job, essentially. They didn't push him out to give him opportunities. And so there's that unique element of this Rodgers versus his former team, as well as this is the coach where it kind of ended. And I don't think things were horrible with him and LaFleur, but I don't think they were amazing, right? Like, I think there's probably both sides probably have a little bit of a gripe. And the same thing with Love. I don't think he hates the guy, but I don't think would call him his best friend. I don't think he'll be in his wedding. So that will be interesting because I know the stigma around Aaron Rodgers when they signed him was this guy's notoriously outspoken and sometimes to a detriment of the team he plays for. Yeah. That has not been the experience for the Pittsburgh Steelers so far. And I'm wondering now if seeing your 18-year ex-girlfriend coming into town brings out that side of him, or if he remains composed and continues to kind of be the mature veteran presence that we've seen from him. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, when is the right time for these NFL teams to move on? Because it happens to the best of them. And we saw it with Tom Brady in New England.
You're right.
Tom Brady played until he was 44 years old. I think he played, was it 3 or 4 seasons in Tampa? Whatever it was, he had some really good years after he was 40 years old. And I think there's that element of, these guys who are the best in the world at what they do, somebody else tells them it's not your time anymore, and they want to go on and prove it. And that's part of the reason Aaron Rodgers still wanted to play. Yeah. He didn't want to go out on that note in New York where he was 5-12, and it wasn't a good season for him as a team or personally. And now he comes to the Steelers, things are going well for 6 weeks. We'll see what transpires here 12 weeks from now after the season's over, but he's off to a really good start. I just think he's got that chip on his shoulder. He wants to prove people wrong. And I think he's going to be motivated to do that. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to say that outwardly and in his remarks to us on Wednesday, but I think deep down he wants to prove to people that he can still play at 41, soon to be 42 years old.
I totally agree. I think it's funny that, we're this deep into the season and the most controversial thing he said is, I wish we got to Ireland earlier. That wouldn't have been on my bingo card. The last thing I wanted to hit on in this topic is, Rodgers, I personally don't think a lot of controversial things will be said. I agree with you where it'll just be, hey, I had a lot of good memories there. I'm excited to play him. I want to win. It'll be pretty, calculated, especially before the game. But this guy's connected with his teammates. And we've seen this throughout the NFL, not just in Pittsburgh, but everywhere. Do you think this could lead to interesting comments from someone other than Aaron Rodgers saying, hey, we want to win this for him, and maybe some sparks could fly from someone else?
Yeah, I'm sure that's the sentiment inside that locker room. I think, the more controversial stuff, or maybe not controversial, it depends on who wants to be outspoken and who doesn't. But there were some guys in Green Bay who didn't get along with Aaron Rodgers. And one of them is Greg Jennings, who now works for FS1. He's been on record saying that the whole divorce between McCarthy and the Packers was maybe a result of Aaron. That's been well documented. So maybe some former teammates who don't have that great relationship with Aaron Rodgers will say something. But I gotta believe, everything that I've heard about Aaron, Greg Jennings is the outlier, right? You talk to his other teammates in Green Bay and New York, and they all say he's a great teammate. All that stuff that was said in the spring and summer was kind of overblown. And I got to be honest with you, inside that Steelers locker room too, and the coaches, to a man, they say he's been great. Now, that doesn't mean he's not hard on these guys. Right. He got up and cussed out Broderick Jones after Broderick Jones tackled him the other day.
Wouldn't you?
Of course I would. I wouldn't want 300 pounds landing on top of me after I just threw what was probably going to be the game-winning touchdown until the defense took the field. But, Broderick talked today and he was joking about it. So obviously that, they squashed that sometime between Sunday and today. But like everything you hear about Aaron is he's a great teammate. And I think by and large, I think 90% of the stuff you're going to hear this week is about Aaron being a good guy and a good teammate.
Awesome. All right. Well, that will conclude our Aaron Rodgers rhetoric discussion. When we're going to take a quick break. When we return, we're going to talk about in my opinion, the best thing they did offensively this past game against the Cincinnati Bengals. Talking tight ends when we get back here on the North Shore Drive podcast. Back here on the Post-Gazette Sports Now YouTube channel and podcast network. Before we get into some tight end talk, want to give another ad read here for Goldberg, Persky, and White. If you were diagnosed with mesothelioma or lung cancer, call your local attorneys at Goldberg, Persky, and White. For over 40 years, our firm has represented thousands of lung cancer and mesothelioma victims. Call 1-800-COMPLEX or visit gpwlaw.com for a free consultation. So, Ray, Steelers hosting the Packers. FanDuel has the Steelers as home dogs coming into the 3.5-point underdogs. You can get them on the money line for plus 148. I'm sure a lot of Steelers fans are eating that up right now, and I can understand why. Another interesting FanDuel odds that I saw: Ravens, despite being 1-5, still the favorites to win the AFC North Division. They're plus 130. Steelers second, right behind them at plus 140. There. So, and if the Steelers, Ray, if they're going to beat the Green Bay Packers, if they're going to win the division, I think the tight ends are going to play a big role in that. You see how I transitioned into there? Never. I'm just joking. But so the tight ends did a great job in all seriousness last week against Cincinnati. Everyone got involved in it was from start to finish. Jonnu Smith with the first touchdown. Washington has been, I think, more involved in the game plan as each week continues. And then Pat Freiermuth, the guy who everyone has been begging to see get involved with this offense, really took over in the second half with 2 touchdowns, including the one that led to Broderick Jones's infamous tackle there in the fourth quarter. Ray, I read your report card. I've been reading it pretty much since you started writing it every Sunday or Thursday, whenever you write them, whenever they play. You gave the receivers a B because you can't grade the tight ends. But a lot of your analysis in there had to do with the tight ends and how well they were involved. How do they get that high of a grade again? How do the Steelers go about, replicating this production? I don't know if you're going to get 4 touchdowns from that trio again in back-to-back weeks, but how do you keep them involved now that some of this stuff is on tape?
Yeah, it's going to be up to Arthur Smith, and he's going to have to be creative to do it, Noah, because, Calvin Austin might be back for this game on Sunday against the Packers. We saw without him, they were very tight end heavy. I mean, that's been their main personnel package. And I think it's going to continue to be a big part of it, even when Austin comes back. But I think the volume of snaps, the volume of targets, and the volume of catches the last couple of games is because Calvin Austin has been out of the lineup. So you might see those numbers come down a little bit, but make no mistake, Darnell Washington is a big part of this offense that's going to stay that way. Jonnu Smith, even though his production is up and down, his snap counts have been fairly consistent except for that one game against the Vikings. So what we're all wondering, okay, how is Pat Freiermuth, or when is Pat Freiermuth going to become that stabilizing force within the offense and actually be one of their main guys? We saw it for one game. Now, one of those big plays was off script. So, the other one was actually a great read by Aaron Rodgers. So, are we to the point now where we could say Freiermuth has arrived? I don't know if we're there yet, but it was really good to see him get involved. Now it's a matter of, can Arthur Smith keep him involved? And that's the big question going forward. But no matter what, the tight ends are going to be a big part of this offense from here on out.
I want to hit on a couple of points of what you just talked about. I want to start with Washington, because I think something that at least I noticed is his ability to impact the offense, not even when he has the ball. I mean, Jalen Warren was another huge impact player against the Bengals. And I think a lot of his long runs, if you look, I mean, they're moving Washington in motion and you get that big guy running, man. I mean, it's similar to what we see the 49ers do kind of with Trent Williams, right? Where you want your big run blocker moving. I mean, they're not necessarily pulling Washington, but using that momentum, and it's been a difference maker. And that's someone where I don't know if he necessarily helps the offense the most by getting the ball in his hands, but just by being there on the field. Do you anticipate his snap count continuing to rise? Because it feels like we're seeing number 80 more and more each week, even if it's not necessarily the ball getting into his hands. He's probably the most impactful of these three so far this season, no?
Yeah, because he's probably the most well-rounded tight end on that football team. And I think the way the Steelers want to play on offense, Noah, he kind of fits their identity at this point. He can cave in opposing defensive ends with his brute force. There's all kinds of clips on social media if you look at the All-22 or even the TV highlights of him just pancaking guys. That right side of the line in particular has been really good in the run game the last couple of weeks. Mason McCormick at right guard, Troy Fautanu at right tackle. And when you add that extra beef of Darnell Washington, or even you mentioned Washington coming in motion, they even used Spencer Anderson coming in motion once or twice the other night, and he was the lead blocker leading up in there. So it's been really effective for their running game. I think they had 99 against the Browns. I think they had they had 99 against the Vikings, and then they had 100 against the Browns and the Bengals. So it's been something they've been leaning on lately. It should make their passing game even better as we go forward, and I think that's exciting. You're going to be able to do play action and hit your tight end. You're going to be able to do play action and hit Calvin Austin and DK Metcalf down the field. So having those big tight ends, those big jumbo personnel packages, it's really been a nice little touch for Arthur Smith and his offense.
The other thing I wanted to hit on with Pat Freiermuth, like you said, we've seen the ceiling for Pat Freiermuth. It looks like what happened. It feels like it's always against Cincinnati too, right? Isn't that like almost? I think every single multi-touchdown game in his career is against the Bengals. So, we see what he can do when they get him involved. The question is, how can you get him involved more consistently? Especially against probably more quality opponents. I mean, the Bengals defense hasn't been the best defense since Pat's been a Pittsburgh Steeler. Yeah. How do they do that? How do they make sure 88 is still not only on the field, but on the stat sheet Sunday night?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to force feed it. You know, Mike Tomlin's big thing during this 3-game stretch where Darnell Washington was a big part of it was they were playing 4-3 teams with big defensive ends, and he wanted Darnell Washington in the football game. That's not necessarily Pat Freiermuth's strength. So now you're going to be playing different teams. Not every team is going to be 4-3. There's going to be some 3-4 teams. There's going to be some teams that play majority zone, and that's where Pat Freiermuth is going to be more successful because he's going to be able to, just to sit in the soft part of the zones and be that big target that the quarterbacks look for, like that safety blanket in the middle of the field. So that's when he's going to be most effective. So is that necessarily going to be this week against the Packers? Yeah, it could be. I mean, but what you want to look for is 3-4 teams that play zone. I think that's where Pat's going to be most successful. But no matter what, and I think the Steelers probably agree with this on some level. You're paying the guy $12 million a year. I don't care if it's 4-3, 3-4, big personnel, light personnel. You have to find ways to get that guy more involved. Split him out as a receiver. He's capable of doing that. Play him inline tight end. Don't ask him to block as much. There are ways you can get around that. So to me, he's not a guy who should be playing only 15 or 20 snaps a game. He's the guy I think you have to get in there more, even when they are playing Darnell Washington, a lot against those bigger teams.
All right. He's Ray Fittipaldo. I'm Noah Hiles. You can read all of our work at post-gazette.com. Get yourself a digital subscription if you don't have one already, and check out our print product as well. We print on Thursdays and Sundays. Ray, I think we just completed our first show together. Brother, any final words before we sign off here?
Now, number 1 in the books, and we'll be back at you next Tuesday. And we'll see if it's after a big Sunday night win or a big Sunday night loss, and the masses of Western PA will be lined up on the Fort Pitt Bridge. We'll see what happens.
Steelers, Packers, Sunday Night Football. Can't wait to read all about it. Can't wait to watch it. We'll have you covered at post-gazette.com. I'll see you next time.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.